Discover the incredible moment when a maid's generosity led to an unexpected love with a CEO dad. Lily stood in the sleek penthouse of Ethan, a world apart from her cramped suburban Ohio apartment. The cobalt skyline rippled in the distance, a reminder of the dreams that felt always out of reach. Shoving her hands in the pockets of her work apron, she eased into the quiet, her heart racing. Today was like any other. She had to scrub, dust, and organize Ethan's space, but today felt tainted, heavy with the weight of unspoken emotions. Would he look at her as just a maid with calloused hands and tired eyes? She hesitated, grappling with the unavoidable pang of inferiority. As Ethan's son, Jake, sat alone at a canvas near the grand windows, she felt a tightness in her chest. She ventured over and offered a tentative smile. A spark of sadness flickered in his eyes, mirroring her own hidden sorrow. "Wanna paint with me?" he asked, voice soft, wrapped in a blanket of loneliness. Could she handle this? Her mind churned with the realities of her life: the bills, the late-night homework sessions with Mia and Sam, their constant needs colliding with her relentless exhaustion. Yet here stood a boy craving connection, and somehow, she sensed that by helping Jake, she could steal a moment from her own woes. Before she could answer, echoes of judgment rippled through her thoughts. Who was she to dabble in such high life? What if Ethan found her pathetic? This job was for survival, but even as her cleaning came with condescension from others, she wore her badge of hard work with pride. This new layer of feeling, this aching sense of empathy, it was dangerous territory. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Lily knelt beside Jake, glancing at the scattered art supplies. Her fingers brushed through the vibrant hues. "Let's make something beautiful together," she whispered, but her own decision clanged in her mind like a siren. Each stroke of paint on the canvas was a stroke against her own fears. Was she good enough to guide him? But as he spoke about his mother with tenderness threaded through grief, sparks of warmth ignited between them. Just as Jake needed her light, she felt mirrored resilience reflecting back to her, but every fleeting moment with Jake gnawed at the corners of her heart. How could she reconcile the rise she felt in being there with the reality of Ethan's world? Would he respect her? Would they cross lines that should remain unmarked? Confusion wrapped around her thoughts, leaving her grappling with the growing urge to connect with his father, whom she had only glimpsed through stilted exchanges. What terrified her most was Jake's connection to her, a child thrumming with loss, while she too swirled in her struggles and sacrifices. And then, the moment arrived at the gala, where appearances dictated an unforgiving reality. As she watched Ethan navigate the crowd, she stood paralyzed, caught between exhilaration and despair. He seemed lost and tethered to his title, while she felt the weight of judgment stacking against her. This was not just dusting and scrubbing. It was a realm of exquisite betrayal and concealed affection, a world that could swallow her whole. Would he choose his colleagues, those who only saw numbers and status, or would he protect the bond they had woven? In that crowded ballroom of polished smiles and whispered criticisms, the possibility of love glimmered just out of reach, heavy with tension and uncertainty. As their gazes finally locked, an invisible question electrified the air: was it too late for them to embrace something profound, despite the looming barriers? Lily's breath hitched as she met Ethan's gaze. In that split second, the bustling world around her faded into a dull hum. The challenge of navigating their differing worlds loomed larger than ever, an unbridgeable chasm seemed to yawn between their lives. He was the CEO, respected, powerful, isolated by the very status that pulled her in. She felt like a fish out of water, embarrassed by the stain of her reality against the backdrop of his shimmering existence. Her heart thrummed, echoing the words of the artist she had so recently helped. "Let's create something beautiful." Could she transform this moment into more than a painful reflection of her insecurities? Standing in the midst of the polished crowd, she felt the instinctual urge to flee, but also the whisper of newfound courage pushing her to stay. She had just begun to connect with Jake, and perhaps through him, she could find a way to reach Ethan too. With a surge of determination, she took a step closer. The essence of the gala fancy suits, sparkling chandeliers, and laughter laced with envy only sharpened her resolve. She must find a way to communicate her worth, her capability to be more than a mere maid in his father's eyes. But how? Ethan's lips pulled into a cautious smile, a flicker of warmth amid the cold glances surrounding them. Just as she was about to reach out, a voice shattered her resolve. "Ethan! Over here!" A striking woman draped in designer silk approached, injecting an air of formality into the moment. The shift in Ethan's demeanor was palpable, the CEO mask returned, and for a split second, Lily was invisible. Ice chill gripped her heart. Was she merely an accessory to his public life? The weight of that thought pressed against her chest like a boulder. As the woman gushed about the latest stock trades and networking opportunities, Lily's focus drifted. She recalled a time when she had painted Mia's walls in pastel colors, feeling the rush of joy as the brushes transformed the space. I can help him in ways beyond this, she realized, a seed of confidence taking root. Determined to break through the curated barriers, Lily summoned her courage and aligned her thoughts into one strategy. She would plan her next steps with intention. She would write, not with a paintbrush, but with her experiences, emotions, and dreams. With far more at stake than mere employment, her mind raced through countless possibilities. If she could express her ideas and emotions freely, perhaps she could also illuminate a path for Ethan and Jake, one where their differences no longer felt insurmountable. Back in the penthouse, as the evening wound to a close, she found herself writing at her modest kitchen table. Words poured onto the page, reflections, aspirations, and the bond she felt with Jake. It was freeing, yet terrifying. What if these words reached Ethan? What if he saw her in a new light, one that showcased not only her vulnerabilities but also her strengths? As she folded the letter, hesitation crept in. Would revealing her thoughts shatter the fragile connection she had begun to weave with both Ethan and Jake? Yet, without risk, how could she ever hope to change her circumstances? Just as she sealed the envelope, the ringing of her phone broke her concentration. It was Mia, calling from school. "Mom, I need to talk." The urgency in her daughter's voice sent Lily's anxiety into overdrive. It was a reminder that while she was beginning to envision a different life, her present realities still demanded her attention. What awaited on the other end of that call? Would it spur her to face yet another personal challenge, or divert her focus entirely? Uncertainty twisted within her as she answered, the letter clutched tightly in her hand, a written testament to the complexities of love and ambition now hanging precariously in the balance. Lily's heart raced in sync with her daughter's urgent tone. As she held the phone, the letter felt heavier in her other hand, a tangible reminder of the possibility that had begun to bloom within her. "What's wrong, Mia?" she managed to ask, forcing herself to set aside the swirling doubts about her ambitions. "Mom, I got in trouble today," Mia replied, her voice trembling. The admission struck Lily like a hammer, and all her budding dreams felt fragile in comparison to this immediate concern. What happened? Lily's mind flashed through scenarios, worst-case situations that tightened her chest even further. "It's just there was this girl, and we got into an argument during lunch. I said something mean, and now I might have to go to the principal's office." Relief flooded her mixed with a pulse of disappointment. "Is that all? We all have disagreements. You need to apologize. That's how you grow, sweetheart." "But I don't want to." She started it. Mia fired back, defiance cracking through her fear. "Listen to me, Mia." Lily set her letter down and took a slow, deep breath. Every obstacle or conflict is also an opportunity. If you don't take responsibility, it'll just weigh on you. Besides, think about how it might feel for her. You may have said something that hurt, and it's your chance to make it right. Lily recognized the truth in her words. Her daughter's challenge echoed her own. She had also been terrified of facing a world filled with judgment and misunderstanding. I don't want to be the one always apologizing," Mia said softly, the defiance fading. "That's okay," Lily soothed, her voice warm. "Apologizing doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're brave enough to admit mistakes and grow from them." As they continued talking, Lily contemplated her own decisions. If she were going to confront her insecurities, her first step must be to acknowledge them openly, first to herself, and then to others. Her recent letter, the thoughts within it, the vulnerability felt enormous, yet it was also wholly necessary. After the call ended, lasting traces of anxiety lingered in Lily's mind. She couldn't shake the nagging sense that it was the perfect moment to breach her own chasms, those between herself, Ethan, and her aspirations. Refusing to let fear dictate her actions, she steeled herself, ready to act on her newfound insights. She picked up the letter again, fingers trembling slightly as she stared at the neatly folded paper. Perhaps Ethan would understand her better now that he was a father, too. Maybe their paths could converge through the bridge of shared experiences rather than diverge beneath the weight of their differences. With each stroke of the pen against the paper, she began revising her words. She added memories, thoughts she wanted to share about navigating life, about striving for more, pulling inspiration from her recent conversation with Mia. The struggle in between pain and hope felt familiar, as did the call to reach deeper within oneself. Was she courageous enough to send this? The inner turmoil clashed with her desire to connect. It was time to stop hiding her heart behind walls of shame about her position in life. She finished writing and took a deep breath, pausing to savor the life-giving rush of potential. But as she reached for an envelope and pen, her phone buzzed again, a message from Jake. "Hey, do you want to grab coffee tomorrow? I found this amazing spot I think you'll love." The offer twisted Lily's thoughts. Could her growing connection to Jake obscure the one she had been cultivating with Ethan? Or was it a chance to deepen her understanding of both men, expanding horizons she once thought constrained? Lily's mind flickered back to the weight of the undelivered letter, both charms and risks woven tightly together. The intricate balance of her burgeoning ambitions and relationships hung in the air, each demanding her attention. Would she act on this new opportunity, or remain anchored by the fear of rejection? Moments ticked by, and the answer lay just within reach. She inhaled deeply, heart pounding, as she prepared to make a decision that could change everything. The next steps would either ignite her journey or plunge her back into silence and doubt. Lily stared at her phone, deliberating over Jake's invitation. The world outside her window bathed in golden hues, yet she felt a heaviness deep within her. Each second stretched into an eternity as inner voices clamored for attention. Her past with Ethan and the allure of connection with Jake. Was she truly ready to invest time with someone new when the specter of her unresolved history loomed? Each thought sharpened her sense of urgency, demanding clarity. She thought of Mia's struggle and the resilience required to confront it. Wouldn't it be wise to mirror that with her own situation? Isn't personal growth fundamentally about venturing into uncharted territories, even if they frighten you? Taking a deep breath, she chose to respond to Jake, a hint of resolve strengthening her fingers as they danced across the keyboard. "Sure, I'd love to catch up. What time?" With a pulse of excitement, she allowed herself a moment of anticipation. The willingness to explore new connections felt invigorating. It was a step outside the boundaries she had carefully constructed around herself. As she hit send, a rush of adrenaline coursed through her, an empowering spark that encouraged her to lean more into possibilities than fears. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. The letter to Ethan sat unfinished on the table, quietly waiting for her decision. But what if she focused instead on where she was going rather than where she had been? Jake's presence could serve as a catalyst, offering her both distraction and insight. The next day arrived with heavy expectation. She donned a dress she hadn't worn in years, a soft fabric that hugged her frame just right. It felt symbolic, a willingness to embrace her femininity, stepping away from the shadows of doubt that often weighed her down. As she glanced in the mirror, a glimmer of confidence sparked. When she entered the cafe they had agreed on, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wrapped around her, invigorating something deep within. Jake appeared shortly after, his friendly smile radiating warmth. They chatted easily, conversation flowing like water. Yet, in the back of her mind, fragments of her past crept in, unsolicited realizations about Ethan that clawed at her heart. With each sip, she found herself increasingly drawn into Jake's charisma. He spoke passionately about his work and dreams with the same fervor she feared revealing. It was a reminder of her ambitions, embroiled in both promise and self-doubt. Then he paused, studying her with curiosity. "You seem a bit distant. Is everything okay?" The question caught her off guard. Did he sense the storm swirling beneath her composed facade? A widening chasm threatened to reveal the fractured pieces of her life. No, it's just I have a lot on my mind, she replied cautiously, carefully choosing what to disclose. Each word felt like a balance between honesty and vulnerability, an instinctive dance of self-preservation. Yet she recognized that downplaying her truth was no longer a viable option. Life can be overwhelming, Jake said, his voice softening, eyes connecting with hers. But you can't let it suffocate your dreams. Sometimes, you just have to dive back in. His encouragement resonated intensely, sparking a chain reaction in her heart. There was truth in his words. Her dreams felt like a flickering flame instead of a bold fire. She could cultivate both relationships and aspirations, but it would require a firm declaration of her intentions. After their coffee date, Lily returned home, battling the dissonance in her mind. Just as she had begun to gain clarity, the weight of her unsent letter loomed larger. As she held the letter again, she felt an unyielding pressure to decide. She needed to confront Ethan and what he represented in her journey. Was it truly fear that kept her from sending it, or was it something deeper? The moment of truth approached like a wave crashing on the shore, inevitable yet transformative. She couldn't be passive anymore. In a whirlwind of determination, she smoothed the letter against the table and pulled out her phone again. "Ethan," she typed, "we need to talk." With her heart racing, she hit send, the message spelling a commitment to confront her past. Would this finally open a pathway to reconciliation, or would it push her deeper into uncertainty? The decision had been made, but the journey was only beginning. She was on the precipice of something climactic, where paths could cross or diverge forever, ready to face the reverberating consequences of her choices. Lily's heart thudded against her chest, each beat echoing the weight of her decision. As the message to Ethan disappeared into the digital void, she felt an odd mix of trepidation and exhilaration. The action was done. Now, the waiting began. The world outside continued its mundane dance, oblivious to the seismic shifts occurring within her. The subsequent days unfolded in a haze of anticipation. Lily immersed herself in work more rigorously than ever, pouring herself into projects she previously found uninspiring. She discovered a dormant energy within her, the fire ignited by her newest intention to confront her past. Each quantitative analysis she executed at work felt like pushing boundaries, her daily tasks transforming from mindless repetition into vehicles of personal growth. When she saw Jake again, it was as if a filament of shared experiences wove through them, connecting their aspirations and realities. Over lunch at a local park, he spoke of his recent promotion. "It's just the beginning," he enthused, his eyes sparkling with ambition. "It feels like a door just opened. I want to bring my team along for the ride." Have you ever had a moment when you realized that everything's about to change? His words struck her, resonating deeply. Wasn't that exactly what she longed for? An evolution, a metamorphosis of her being? She wanted to be more than just a person defined by her past with Ethan. She wanted to embrace the potential of who she could become. "Yes, I think I'm on the brink of change myself," she confessed, surprising herself. As they strolled through the sun-drenched park, she found herself sharing visions about her future, thoughts she had kept tightly wrapped in the confines of her mind. Suddenly, there was clarity. The walls she had built began to crack, allowing fresh air to flow through. Yet, by the end of the meal, she felt the specter of Ethan rise ominously. When would he respond? Part of her wanted to ease the rising anxiety, but a stronger part, empowered by Jake's encouragement, urged her to stick it out. She leaned into the tension, resolving not to let it dampen her spirit. Days passed, and she felt her resolve strengthening, but with the deeper understanding came revisited emotions. The looming waiting game with Ethan gnawed at her determination. Just as doubt threatened to cloud her newfound confidence, an unexpected message from Jake arrived. "A simple thinking of you" lit up her screen, the warmth of his words illuminated a path forward. She realized he wasn't just a distraction, there was a potential for something genuine. Her heart began to race again, not in fear but in the thrill of possibility. But would fully engaging with Jake mean letting Ethan slip away for good? The internal conflict burgeoned, swirling like a tempest as she reflected on her encounters with both men. Where did she stand between ambition and connection? Amid the excitement of forging new relationships, past shadows lingered. The chase of reconciling regret with the desire for growth spun a complex narrative within her. The moment of truth about her past remained on the precipice, waiting to collide with the deepening connection she was nurturing. Sitting on her balcony one evening, a convergence of emotions led her to question whether she was ready. The wind swept softly around her, almost beckoning her to take action. She touched her phone, fingers hovering as if they had a will of their own. What if, instead of fearing the potential of pain, she embraced the inherent uncertainty of life? She could forge forward, bold in her attempts to nurture new growth while still honoring her past. In that moment, her choice crystallized. She swiped to open a new message, but before she could compose it, a notification blinked insistently. Ethan's name flashed on her screen. Everything she had been building toward, all the moments of personal reflection hung in the balance. Would this message be the closure she yearned for, or would it upend her fragile newfound direction? The path ahead felt both exhilarating and terrifying, as clarity waged war against doubt. The significance of the choice lay thick in the air, an invitation to confront everything that came with the notion of moving forward. She inhaled deeply, poised on the brink of reclaiming her narrative, ready to face what lay beyond the invisible boundary separating past from potential. Just then, her phone buzzed again. Ethan had replied. Now, she had to decide whether to respond or let it all settle into silence. What awaited her beyond this decision? Lily stared at her phone, her heart racing as the tiny screen illuminated Ethan's message. This moment felt pivotal, a crossroads as she waded through her complex emotions. She hesitated, mind racing with the implications. His words could either cement her choices or unravel the progress she had just begun to savor. She read the message again, analyzing every word. Hey Lily, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. Can we talk? There it was, the familiar tug of nostalgia mixed with the realization of how much she had changed since their last interaction. Blocking out the noise of her whirling thoughts, she dug deep. What did she want? The desire for closure danced closely with the fear of regressing into old patterns. Responding might mean welcoming a flood of memories, bringing along unresolved feelings. Was she ready to dive back into that emotional whirlpool? Or was this the opportunity to redefine how her past shaped her present, and potentially her future? With an intentional breath, she remedied her scattered mind, envisioning a strong, independent version of herself, someone who wouldn't shy away from confrontation. Conversations with Jake kept sparking in her memory, a reminder of the excitement that comes with a fresh start. He had instilled something in her, an insatiable hunger for transformation. She needed to channel that energy now rather than succumb to impulse. She decided to balance reflection with action. She acknowledged that she wanted to engage in a conversation, yet the onus of how the dialogue would unfold should lie firmly in her hands. Instead of simply allowing Ethan to dictate the terms of their exchange, she would frame it. Sitting upright, she composed a thoughtful response. I do like that, but I need to be honest about where I'm at. Things have changed for me. As she pressed send, she felt a wave of empowerment wash over her. It was a declaration and affirmation of her growth. She had refused to slip back into a passive role defined by someone else's narrative. In the hours that followed, anticipation hung thick in the air, dancing uneasily with her resolve. Moments of doubt flared intermittently. What if he didn't respond as she hoped? What if her newfound direction wavered in the light of the past? However, the lens of rationality she forged over recent days kept her grounded. Change rarely arises without conflict, she reminded herself. She focused on work, throwing herself into a project she had dreaded at first. The data analysis no longer felt burdensome. She relished the challenge, the complexity of untangling information, contemplating how it mirrored her own emotional state. Each resolved equation energized her self-worth. Like balancing distinct elements of a complex problem, she realized she had the power to chart the course of her emotional landscape. Jake's increasing presence fortified her newfound conviction. Their conversations poured over reality in a way that felt both refreshing and liberating. He challenged her thinking, both professionally and personally. Lily mulled over a recent project she shared with him, one that seamlessly melded creativity with measurable results. Embracing the scope of her capabilities and aspirations flecked with fresh enthusiasm, she emerged with a clearer vision of her future. With determination building, she resolved to confront the conversation with Ethan not as a regression, but as a necessary element of her evolution. The past served its purpose, but she would enter the dialogue anchored firmly in the present, maintaining her sense of self-worth. It was time to redefine everything: the expectations, the relationships, and most importantly, herself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, her phone lit up once more. It was a message from Ethan, and her stomach nodded with mixed anticipation and fortitude. She took a deep breath before opening it, knowing she was ready to face whatever came next. The message read, "I feel like we need to clear the air. Can we meet tomorrow?" In that moment, she realized she had come so far, steps deeper into her own skin. With renewed focus, she pondered her two lives, her evolving self in the present and the connection she held tenuously with her past. Would she meet both expectations head-on, or would she pick and choose which pieces of herself to carry forward? The choice lay ahead, unresolved but exhilarating. Lily glanced at the clock, her heart thumping under the weight of uncertainty. The message from Ethan hung over her like a storm cloud, yet it didn't dampen her spirit. Instead, it transformed into a catalyst for contemplation. She had always felt tethered to the past, yet now, standing on the threshold of this crucial dialogue, she was ready to pivot. The anticipation gnawed at her as she considered the possibilities. Meeting Ethan again meant reopening a door she had initially bolted and boarded up. But instead of dread, excitement brewed within her. This was an invitation to reclaim her narrative. Breaking free from the shackles of that relationship had been significant. With each passing day, she had fortified her self-image, cultivated resilience, and discovered a sense of purpose beyond the echo of her past. As she prepared for the meeting, Lily resolved to approach it with clarity and intention. She grabbed a notebook and began drafting her thoughts. Writing had always served as an outlet, a method for crystallizing her perspective. In her journal, she recorded not only her feelings about Ethan but also the values she had come to prioritize: trust, respect, and emotional integrity. Reflecting on her transformation, she acknowledged how far she had come, especially since meeting Jake. His unwavering support and challenge to think deeply about her desires wielded power over her choices. In their numerous discussions, he ignited a recognition of her worth that had remained dormant for years. How easily she had merged her identity with someone else's expectations. Now, though, she was willing to defend her own values against any shadow from her past. The day of the meeting arrived with a sense of weightiness, the air heavy with indefinable possibility. The cafe where they agreed to meet buzzed with energy, the clinking of coffee cups and low chatter serving as a backdrop to her anxious thoughts. As she settled into her seat, she felt the tension physically magnifying each breath, a reminder of the yearning to forge clarity from confusion. When Ethan finally walked in, he appeared older, wearier. The boy she once knew, tethered to that nostalgia, seemed to fade next to the man standing before her. He immediately locked eyes with her, a flicker of recognition and an attempt at composure crossing his face. In that instant, Lily reminded herself of her own resolve. He might have once defined her, but he would not again. "Hi, Lily," he greeted, his voice laced with a hesitant familiarity. "Hi, Ethan," she replied, choosing a steadiness she hadn't felt in their previous encounters. They settled into small talk, but the underlying tension was palpable. Lily's mind raced ahead, weaving through possibilities as she fought the instinct to drift back to the past. She needed to control this dialogue. It was imperative that it aligned with the path she was forging. "I've done a lot of thinking since we last spoke," she began, breaking the cycle of small talk. "And I want to share some of what I've learned about myself." Her voice held a firmness that resonated through her chest. This was her moment. Ethan's eyebrows knitted in curiosity, signaling he was finally tuned in. "I've been thinking about us too." "I know," she interrupted gently but firmly. "I think we need to clear the air on what we both want, but I can't slip back into old patterns. I need to understand where I stand, and what my boundaries are now." The gravity of her words hung between them, transforming the conversation into a significant turning point. Would this meeting be an attempt at reconciliation, or a step toward an affirmation of self? The clock on the wall ticked steadily, but time felt suspended as her heart hammered a nervous rhythm. Ethan nodded slowly, respect flickering in his eyes. "I understand. I think that's what I want too." As Lily watched his expression shift, she felt a stir of empowerment rise within her. This was not just about their past, it was about her future, her sanitized boundaries, and the clarity she craved. The storm within her began to settle into determined calm, and then, as she prepared to dive into a deeper discussion about their history, a thought visited her mind: what if this encounter could reveal not just the truth about their past, but a path toward an entirely new chapter in her life? With that thought, she steeled her resolve for whatever revelations laid ahead, murmuring, "Let us talk about where we go from here together." Would this meeting end as a closure or an unexpected opening? The answer loomed just out of reach, tantalizingly close. Lily took a deep breath, steadying herself as the weight of the moment pressed down on her. The cafe felt both intimate and public, filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and muffled conversations that underscored her own turbulent thoughts. She could sense Ethan's anticipation and uncertainty mirrored in her own pulse. This was it. Here lay the promise of a new direction, or perhaps the chance to finally close a chapter she had wrestled with for far too long. Before we delve into anything heavy, she began, trying to balance the seriousness of the conversation with a lightness that no longer felt artificial to her. "I think it's important to acknowledge where we both stand now." Ethan leaned in, attentive. "I agree. What do you mean by where we stand?" Lily held his gaze, the familiar whirl of emotions not overpowering her anymore. "I've spent months, years even reassessing my life. After everything that transpired, I realized that my worth cannot hinge on someone else's approval or happiness." Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of acknowledgement crossing his features. "I don't want to avoid the past, but I need to understand it from my perspective." The edges of her resolve sharpened. "From this point forward, it's critical for me to establish clear boundaries. I want to talk openly and honestly, but I want to backtrack emotionally." His nod was slow, but firm. "I appreciate that. I respect where you're coming from." The sincerity in his reply disarmed her, and in that moment, she found clarity amidst the chaos of conflicting emotions swirling in her thoughts. "Honestly, I had forgotten how important self-advocacy was," she admitted, shifting her focus to the woman she had become while still interacting with the boy she once knew. "It's easy to get lost in someone else's narrative, but I refuse to do that anymore." Ethan inhaled sharply. "What I did to you, I never intended. I hoped our relationship could evolve. But I understand now that my actions pushed you to a breaking point, and for that, I am truly sorry." Lily felt the weight of his words settle among them. The sincerity sparked a thought that had lain dormant in her mind during the weeks leading up to this meeting. "Do you think we can define a new understanding of what we had? Not to rekindle old flames, rather, to engage in a mature conversation from a place of respect?" His brow furrowed, visibly deep in thought. "That would mean accepting accountability on my part, truly acknowledging how I hurt you," he said slowly. "It creates room to reflect and grow, doesn't it?" "Yes, it does," she responded, feeling an unexpected warmth in her chest. "Part of my growth has involved recognizing what I am unwilling to accept." The conversation took an unexpected turn as Lily revealed her passions, her ambitions, and her ongoing journey towards self-discovery. She articulated her recent decisions, how she turned down offers and opted for opportunities that align not just with her career, but with her identity. Ethan listened intently, and Lily could see his intrigue grow as he absorbed her transformation. "You sound empowered," he murmured, the hint of admiration in his tone igniting a flicker of pride within her. Their dialogue flowed seamlessly now, no longer clinging to the bittersweet remnants of their shared past but instead blossoming into something profoundly enlightening. As the minutes ticked by, they shared laughter and vulnerability, both recognizing that they possessed the capacity for growth beyond their previously defined roles. Yet, beneath the surface, a tension crackled, a hint of uncharted territory. Was their budding connection a bridge to something more, or simply a healing discussion? Just as she began to contemplate her own feelings toward him that had woven through their conversation, Lily felt the weight of another layer emerge. "Ethan," she began, her voice low, "what if we explored the potential of our connection without reverting to old patterns? Would that be such a burden for you?" The question hung between them, and she felt a sense of anticipation thrum in her chest. The revelation of what had taken root in her heart loomed dangerously close. His gaze was earnest, but uncertainty simmered just below the surface. "I'm not sure," he admitted, a note of hesitation lacing his words. "But perhaps that's what this entire meeting is about, discovering what's possible." Lily's heart raced, the potential spinning before her like a tightrope stretched taut above a chasm of doubt. Perhaps this was the very moment where her true self could emerge, not just as a survivor, but as someone ready to build something authentic anew. Would she dare to step forward into this uncertainty, or would she tip into the abyss of fear? It all hinged on a choice teetering at the edge of her revelation. Lily felt a surge of emotions as her words lingered in the air, mingling with the aroma of coffee and muffled laughter around them. She had taken a calculated risk by voicing her desires, daring to challenge the unspoken boundaries that had long dictated their relationship. But the pulse of uncertainty thrummed beneath her resolve, gnawing at her courage. Ethan's hesitation scratched her confidence. Did he truly understand the gravity of what she was proposing? The thought of venturing into unknown territories with him sent a shiver down her spine, a cocktail of excitement and fear fizzing within. Yet, she remained anchored to her intention. The person she had become in the months since their last interaction demanded honesty not just from him, but from herself. Exploring what's possible sounds daunting, she admitted, her voice steady despite the questions swirling in her mind. We have a chance to redefine our connection, to leave behind what hurt us. Ethan took a deep breath, his expression a mix of contemplation and trepidation. It was clear he battled internal demons too, perhaps one of recognition, that their past was more than just a series of hurtful moments. It had shaped them, both for better and worse. The idea of redefining things terrifies me, he confessed, his brows furrowing, but perhaps that's exactly what I need. To step away from what I thought our relationship was. She admired his transparency, even as doubts settled in the corners of her mind. Could they genuinely rewrite their narrative without falling back into old dynamics? The looming question reshaped her perspective. They were embarking on emotional territory that could lead to healing or deeper heartache. Do you think, she ventured, to redefine ourselves also means we confront the things we avoided? Acknowledging not only the past but how it has informed our decisions. Ethan nodded slowly. Yes, and I'm willing. But I also fear the risk of losing you again. A flicker of apprehension crossed her mind at his words. She had fought so hard to reclaim her voice that the thought of losing him again felt like relinquishing part of her newfound strength. I'm not asking you to lose anything. I'm asking us to build something new, one layer at a time. That means facing uncomfortable truths. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken realities, until he sighed. What truth are you most afraid of? His question caught her off guard, peeling back layers of her guarded heart. It dawned on her, the fear of vulnerability that had once suffocated her began to brew again. The knowledge that letting someone in could potentially lead to loss re-emerged. Fear of being seen as too weak or too strong, she said cautiously, because both sides have a tendency to scare people away. I've seen your strength, he replied quietly, and maybe that's what frightens me more. I've often relied on my charm and ambition to sidestep consequences, but here you are ready to face them. In those moments, Lily recognized a shift. Here was Ethan, not just as a past lover but as a reflective collaborator in her journey toward growth. She felt a warmth build within her, the edges of their connection softening, albeit slowly and trepidatiously. Let us take it one conversation at a time, she proposed, her voice gaining confidence. We needn't rush, we can keep things light while being honest. We built enough walls to understand how they fell. They exchanged tentative smiles, the essence of possibility shimmering between them. Each cautious laugh and gentle jest illuminated a path forward, yet the lingering expectation simmered like a fresh brew nearing its boiling point, threatening to spill over. Yet, just as she felt a sense of assurance settling within her, bubbling excitement was punctuated by a sudden realization. What if, she breathed, our discussions are simply the beginning of unveiling deeper truths about ourselves that extend beyond each other? His gaze sharpened. What do you mean? Are you suggesting our journey together might also lead us to discover aspects we've hidden even from ourselves? Lily's heart raced. Yes, the notion permeated every fiber of her being. This would not just be about them, it would be an awakening of their individual selves where choices would matter beyond their connection. The weight of the unspoken hung between them, revealing the potential for both challenge and triumph. As the warmth of the cafe surrounded them, she pondered both dread and excitement, readying herself for what lay ahead. They stood at a precipice of transformation together, yet distinctly alone in their struggles. Taking another deep breath, Lily ventured, Ethan, it's time we confront not just who we are to each other, but who we are without the shadow of our past. The challenge stood at the forefront. This was not merely an invitation to rekindle familiarity, it was an awakening toward self-discovery in uncharted waters. Would they plunge into this journey with hearts wide open, or would fear resurface as their old nemesis? The prospect of discovery clung to her thoughts like an urgent whisper, and she knew the next conversation would delve into the profound unknown that lay ahead. Lily sat in her cozy apartment, the sunlight spilling through the window, warming her spirit in a way she had long forgotten. The significance of the meeting with Ethan still buzzed in her mind, but she now felt something new, a burgeoning sense of empowerment. It wasn't just about what had been shared, it was about who she was becoming. That morning marked a decisive shift. She had unveiled layers she previously kept hidden, not only from Ethan but from herself. Returning to work had transformed too. Every data set she analyzed resonated with reflections of her journey, a meticulous correlation drawn from her past and present experiences. She was more than a maid, she had cultivated a unique skill set in data analysis, gaining recognition in her field. Her recent project had received accolades from her supervisor, who praised her insight and accuracy. Each compliment acted as fuel, inspiring her to push boundaries, forging the path to her professional identity. Lily reveled in this change, consistently reminding herself that she was capable. Improvements in her work built on the courage she found in confronting her relationship with Ethan, reaffirming her value outside of her past identity. This evolving confidence paralleled the growing bond she cultivated with Jake. Their subsequent meetings overflowed with genuine conversations, intellectually stimulating, yet warm. When Jake had suggested an art exhibit, her heart flared with excitement. He was a conduit for rediscovered passions. Exploring art reignited something vibrant within her. They spent hours wandering through galleries, debating colors and strokes, each moment binding them closer. This was no longer just about distraction, it was about forging genuine connections. One evening, as they shared a cup of coffee, Jake turned toward her, sincerity etched into his expression. "You've changed, Lily. In such a good way. I see you stepping into your strength," he said, his voice imbued with admiration. In that moment, she understood, it took resilience to navigate transformations and accept them fully. Reinforced by Jake's acknowledgement, Lily decided it was time to write a new letter, but this time, it would be different. It would express not just her aspirations and reflections but a solid acknowledgement that she was not that girl bound by insecurities. Choosing to send it to Ethan felt like a robust declaration of her achievements and the person she had grown into. Days later, as she prepared her pen and paper, the light around her felt different. Her intentions were clear and unwavering. The words flowed seamlessly. "Dear Ethan, I want to thank you for the conversation we had. It helped clarify so many thoughts and feelings that I've carried with me. My journey to embrace who I am has revealed my strengths, and I wanted you to know I've made strides in my career. I've become more than the insecurities that once held me back." With her heart racing, she penned each sentence, another realization striking her: she was no longer writing from a place of fear. She completed the letter with a note about the inspiration she found within herself and a hope that they could continue to evolve, not as lost souls from their past, but as individuals ready to face new horizons. As she sealed the envelope and slipped it into the mail, a wave of liberation washed over her. No matter the outcome, she was proud of the standpoint she had reached. It wasn't merely an invitation for connection, it was a celebration of her journey. She had conquered the highest barrier, self-doubt. Weeks turned into months, and with every interaction with Jake, she felt stability solidifying within her. Their relationship blossomed into a companionship filled with laughter, support, and growth. Each time they tackled challenges together, whether discussing personal dreams over coffee or navigating work-related hurdles, she felt more intrinsically aligned with who she had become. And then, with the first signs of spring, she received a text from Ethan. "Let us talk again?" The simple message rang through her thoughts like a bell, and rather than feeling trepidation, she felt anticipation. This time, she knew she would go into that conversation with unwavering confidence in her worth and growth. Whatever may come from this meeting, she was undeniably ready to face it, determined not to fall back but to stand strong in who she had become. Lily had not just transformed her professional life, she had transformed her entire existence, stepping boldly forward, ready to embrace whatever the future held. It was finally time for her narrative to be written on her own terms, an exhilarating journey that was just beginning. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment below your reactions and theories about this satisfying conclusion, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.